Here are all the audiobooks my son has listened to in the last month and a half. So on this list, there are some great new favorites, including a new series that I've heard about for a while, and we finally tried, and it's awesome for science. So stick around to find out what that is. Hi guys, I'm Kathleen Lewis. I'm a homeschool graduate, homeschool mom, learning enthusiast, and yes, I am an avid bookworm, and my son's becoming an avid bookworm too, as evidenced by how many books we get through in a month. So this is not going to include any physical books, because if we did those books, we'd be here forever. This is just the audiobooks that we have listened to for the last month and a half. And also, if you're curious on where we get our audiobooks, check out in the description. I have a link to where you can find free audiobooks, because all of these we get for free to listen to, so check that out. First up is the book, The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street. This is hilarious. It is definitely a new favorite from Stephen and I. And it is about a family, the Vanderbeekers, who gets notice from the landlord that they need to vacate their house, their apartment right after Christmas. And the Vanderbeeker kids decide to get together, work on a campaign to convince their landlord otherwise. Along the way, you have these sibling interactions, from the annoying brother to the cute younger sister, two twins that couldn't be more different, yet they're very close together. So you have the sibling dynamic that they learn to work through, and then of course you have the overarching story of, will they actually stay in their house? Now, this is a series. I have no idea what the second and third books are about. If you guys have read them, let me know what you think about them down in the comments to see if they're worth a listen to. I mentioned in the last video I did on audiobooks, Mindy Kim, and we discovered that in our study of Korea. If you want to know more about that, check up in the iCards. But Mindy Kim, I was so pleased with the writing, and it's writing for the younger grades, probably first through third grade, that I let my son listen to the rest of the series without me previewing them. Now, it'd been several weeks, and I asked him one evening, what do you want to listen to for bedtime? And he said, Mindy Kim. I want the Lunar New Year Parade one, though. And he had to go on and tell me what the book was about. So again, this series was so phenomenal for him that he has been requesting it even weeks after we finished listening to all of them. So I thought it was time to introduce Stephen to a series that I read when I was a kid and absolutely loved, the Encyclopedia Brown series. Have you guys heard of it? Because apparently it is not as common as I thought it was to have read those books, but they're about this boy detective who solves neighborhood crimes, typically because there's an older gang of boys who pick on or steal stuff or whatever, and he also helps his dad, who is the chief of police in his town, solve actual real crimes. So they're great. There's a separate crime per chapter. There's a separate case to solve per chapter. Stephen loved it so much, he's been listening to it on loop. So there was only one that was available on digital. I got the disc from the library, which have been taken back because I was tired of listening to them. So to get him off that, I had to pull out an old favorite, Henry Huggins. That, of course, is a classic. We've listened to several of these series, and he has been requesting this at bedtime now. He's been listening to this in the afternoon. My son loves this series so much that he's actually memorized passages just from how much he's listened to it and has been quoting it to me.
Libsy jumped for the roast with one death friction. Henry tried to free himself from the roses. His thorns dug deep into his legs.
If you guys have not read it, you've got to read it. It's a hilarious story about a boy and all the pickles he gets into with his dog, with his friends, just with life. It is an awesome series. If you agree with me that this is an awesome series, bump that like button, let me know. Okay, onto a book that I referenced in a previous video about my son's imagination, The Hobbit. We tried to listen to The Hobbit. I did not stop because he wasn't engaged. He thought the dwarfs were hilarious. The Hobbit was funny. He loved the words, but I was starting to see his imagination was just not mature enough for it. If you are curious on what happened, go check that video out because it all has to do with a dragon. So I had to put that aside. Even though he was engaged, he would sit there after breakfast and listen to it, but I decided we need to wait a few years for him to be able to handle his imagination a little bit better. I did try to introduce him to Mercy Watson. We read the first book a little over a year ago, and he loved it, but I was looking for more bedtime reads for him so he's not continually on the loop of Encyclopedia Brown or Henry Higgins, etc., etc., etc. So we tried Mercy Watson, but he just did not get into it this time. I don't know why. Maybe it's a younger reading level than he's been exposed to, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure why he didn't like it. It's a great book, great series, and a lot of fun stories involved, but it just didn't work for us this time. We're only about halfway done here, guys. And if you want to know why we listen to so many audiobooks, check out the iCards. That will take you to a video showing you exactly how we use the audiobooks in our everyday homeschool life. This next book is a he loved it, I didn't kind of situation. Pippi Longstocking. I know some of you out there may be going, why do I not like it? Now, don't get me wrong, it is a cute book, but Pippi got on my nerves after a while. So the book is about Pippi, and she lives on her own. There's no adults living with her monitoring what she does. And she does so many outlandish and weird things and has weird ideas that it's just bizarre. The kids laugh at it. The kids love it because she does so many kooky things. But she's just not a good role model, if I can put it that way. Like, talking about lying and bragging on the fact that she lies. She annoys people purposefully. She doesn't see the need to learn and ends up getting the kids on her side for, yeah, why should I go to school? It's pointless. So there's a lot of issues in there. It's a funny book, but as an adult and as a parent who's trying to teach my kid the appropriate way to respect and interact with others, I just couldn't get on board with it. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on that and if you've had to deal with that on your own. But yeah, that was my son laughed at a lot of the stuff in that book. My husband actually told me there is a movie that he watched years ago that he thought was hilarious. So he loved Pippi, but I just couldn't get behind her. Sorry. The book that is an old favorite that we listened to many months ago that I pulled out again just so that he could have something physical to put into the CD player on his own is Anna Hibiscus. Hooray for Anna Hibiscus was the one we got this time. Anna Hibiscus series, it's phenomenal, it's funny, it's cute. Anna experiences life in modern, I think it's Nigeria, correct me if I got that country wrong, from a middle class type family position. So she talks about her life. She talks about her family, how they all live in a compound together. She talks about her crazy younger brothers. She talks about how much she wants to see snow. And yeah, it's sweet, it's funny, it's definitely appropriate for a 4 to 7-year-old range. So I was asking my son what he liked in books, why he liked books, what he wanted to read more of. And he said he really liked the books about real people in real places. So your mind's probably going immediately to the Laura Ingalls Wilder series. Yes, Stephen loves Little House on the Big Woods. He loves Farmer Boy. We've also listened to Little House on the Prairie. So I thought, how can I give him some more real people, real times and places to learn about on audiobooks? Let me tell you, it's really hard. I did, however, remember a book that I recently read when we were going through our cultural studies on Japan, and it's called The Heart of a Samurai, and it's about a real man named Manjiro who was instrumental in opening up Japan to the rest of the world. They were a closed nation for forever. So this is a story about a boy who was shipwrecked as a fisherman. He got picked up by whalers and taken to the US, where he was kind of fostered, adopted by the captain of the whaling ship. He was educated in schools in New England, and when he became a young man, he went back to the sea and eventually made his way back to Japan. And there he was held under suspicion for a few years, and then finally, behind the scenes, he was the one that was instrumental to the peaceful negotiations with the US when they opened up trade to the US and also the rest of the world. So it is a true story. It is designed to be read by middle schoolers. I read it. I thought my son could handle it. It is not the level of The Hobbit in material, if I can say it that way. The situations, the adventures, the fighting. There's no hand-to-hand fighting. There's going to be wailing. There's going to be talk about his experience with the racism in New England in the 1800s. There is a couple situations when his life is in danger. Yes, he was shipwrecked and he was starving on an island outside of Japan. So there's all those things in there, but when I read it, I didn't think it was too harsh for my son. And to top off the amazing biographical book, the great writing, it did win a Newbery Medal. So this is definitely a win if you're looking for something for your middle schooler or younger elementary, if they're ready for a little bit more meaty content, if I can say it that way. Now, we haven't finished it yet because it did have to go back to the library. I only had it for 21 days on Hoopla, so we'll have to finish that next month. Okay, here it is. I told you we have a new favorite series. It is, drumroll please, Zoe and Sassafras. I was not very certain about this series because I wasn't sure what kind of science they'd be teaching, what level of science they'd be teaching at, and how in the world you combine that with fantasy. But we tried it recently on a trip to DC, and we loved it. The first book, Dragons and Marshmallows, is hilarious. In that book, the young girl suddenly finds out that there's this whole world of magical creatures in the woods behind her house. And her mom's been helping these creatures for years as a scientist, healing their ails and helping them. So this daughter is now pulled into this world, and through helping a dragon, she learns about reptiles, and she goes and studies books and figures out how to help this sick dragon become well and be able to go back to the wild. I think there's 8 books written right now. We borrowed 6 of them, and I think my son has listened to 5. He specifically asked me to play for him again, Dragons and Marshmallows. So that tells you it is a win because he asked for it by name. But there's other books in the series. I have my list right here. Monsters and Mold, Mer Horses and Bubbles, Caterflies and Ice, The Pot in the Bog, and Unicorns and Germs. So I've only listened to bits and pieces as he's been engaged, and I'm doing other stuff. But I can tell you it is an awesome way to introduce scientific concepts, the scientific process, how to conduct an experiment, and tweak your next experiment to get better results. So it is a huge win. I'm curious, what do you guys think about it? Because I have not read the last 2 books and I've only listened to part of it. But you as parents, let me know what you think down in the comments. Is that a win for you? Have you heard of that series before? If not, let me know if you're going to check it out.